Welcome to Sunday Dinners with Michelle. Today we are going to make a traditional Christmas Eve dish in honor of the Christmas holiday. We are going to make stuffed calamari ripieni. So it's calamari tubes stuffed with breadcrumbs, garlic, parsley, lemon juice, olive oil, and white wine. We will then slowly cook it in a tomato sauce, and it is a delicious treat for you to have with your family this upcoming Christmas season. So you can get calamari tubes either frozen or fresh at your local supermarket or at a fish market. I recommend getting it at a fish market. It just tends to be fresher. So make sure that they're already cleaned. So you can get them cleaned. So the skin will be removed, the insides will be removed, and you will have the tentacles that are detached from it. In this serving we have 8 calamari tubes. We also have 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs in a bowl. To that we are going to add 2 cloves of garlic that we will crush through our garlic press. We will also add 2 teaspoons of chopped fresh parsley. I prefer fresh parsley in this recipe. If you don't have fresh, you can always use dry, but fresh just gives it I just think a brighter flavor. You'll also add the zest of a lemon to this, so make sure you get, I try to get organic lemon if I'm going to use the zest. Get an organic lemon and use a microplane grater to remove just the yellow part of the lemon here. You don't want to get the white. The white is the bitter part, so you'll just keep zesting this around until you remove all of the yellow. And this is going to give a really bright lemony flavor. It releases all the essential oils that are in the lemon skin, and I love to add this to my dishes, especially fish dishes when I'm cooking. So we'll just add that right into the bowls. Really simple. And as I said earlier, we'll chop up some parsley here. We'll take the same lemon and cut it in half and add all of the juice. To add the juice. So we could give this a little stir here as our stuffing starts to come together. To this, we are going to add a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And also a 1/4 cup of white wine. You can use any white wine that you like to drink. I would suggest in this recipe to use a Pinot Grigio or an Italian white. So a 1/4 cup of white wine will also be added into this. Give it a quick stir. So depending on your family and your preference, you can start adding the seasonings that you like to this. So typically I add some crushed red pepper flakes, about a 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't like it spicy, you can omit that part from the recipe. You should definitely add some salt and pepper to taste. I would suggest about a teaspoon of salt, and I prefer freshly ground black pepper. I just feel like it gives a better flavor than the store-bought ground pepper. You can stir that in. And the next thing we're going to add is some oregano. I would add about a half a teaspoon of dried oregano. If you have fresh oregano, that would be fantastic as well. But if you only have the dried, a little bit goes a long way with the dried oregano. Speaking of preference, some of my family does not, they do not enjoy capers or olives, but at this point a really traditional part of a Sicilian stuffed calamari dish would be to add some chopped capers and chopped olives. So it's really up to you and your family whether you want to add that here, but I will omit it in the stuffing. The last thing you're going to do here, we're going to clear some space on our cutting board. You are going to just roughly chop up the tentacles from the calamari tubes and add it into the stuffing. If you want to get a little fancy, because it's the holidays, you can use crab meat or clams or shrimp, you know, whatever fish you prefer. But we just tend to typically just use the tentacles of the calamari. Okay, and now that the chopped up pieces of calamari are in here, we'll give this a quick stir. And if you take a look at the stuffing, it's not super wet. You want to make sure it's not overly moist. So if you take it into your fingers, it'll kind of mush together and hold its shape, but it's not overly wet. So at this point, we are going to oil the bottom of our baking dish. Again, drizzle it with some extra virgin olive oil. And we will start stuffing our calamari tubes with our filling. So the calamari will shrink when you're cooking it. So you do not want to overstuff the tubes. So loosely fill it to the top. Once the tubes are filled about 3/4 of the way to the top, you will use a toothpick to close the calamari tube. Just thread it through like that to hold it shut so the filling doesn't fall out when you bake it, and place it in the bottom of your baking dish. Okay, now that you've stuffed all your calamari and sealed them closed with a toothpick, we're going to make a quick tomato sauce that we'll pour over. So I have 1 can of crushed tomatoes. To that I am going to add a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. 3 cloves of garlic. I like to just smash them to let the flavor out. So we'll just crush them and put them in there. 2 teaspoons of chopped parsley. So we're going to chop up the fresh parsley and add that to our tomatoes. add some hot crushed red pepper. I'm adding about a teaspoon, maybe 2, because we like it a little spicy. To this, I will also add a teaspoon of capers. So a teaspoon of capers will add a little bit of brininess and saltiness to your dish. Actually, I think we kind of need to, based on what I'm seeing here. So 2 teaspoons of capers. I will also add some oregano, since we already added that into the breadcrumbs. I will add a half a teaspoon of oregano to this as well. And then we are going to want to add salt. We are going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, some crushed black pepper, and our last ingredient will be some white wine. Again, another 1/4 cup of white wine in here. We'll add this into our crushed tomatoes. Give this a quick stir just to combine all the flavors here. This already smells amazing. So we will take this and pour it over. Pour this over your stuffed calamari and try and get that evenly distributed here. We will cover this with aluminum foil and bake in a 400-degree oven for 30 minutes. And I will show to you when we're done. So we baked our stuffed calamari, or calamari ripieni, for 30 minutes in the oven. I also cooked some spaghetti to serve underneath. So we are just going to plate it now. Just some either box spaghetti, or you can use my homemade pasta recipe and use your homemade spaghetti. And serve this beautiful stuffed calamari. Use some of the sauce that's in there. Make sure you pull out the toothpick before serving. We'll just put 2 of these on there. Let's grab another one right here. 2 on top of this beautiful pasta. Spoon some of the sauce right on top there. And drizzle a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And there you go, a traditional dish from the Feast of 7 Fishes for Christmas Eve. And as my grandma always said, bambini, se pronte le mangiare.